Hi everyone and welcome to another video where I'm going to talk about my experiences with mental health and how that relates to archery. In my last video I talked a bit about my backstory, about my issues when it comes to mental health and how I discovered archery through my recovery process and how that had an overall positive effect on my recovery. In this video I want to look at how one particular technique from my therapy helped with my archery and how archery helped me apply that technique when it came to my mental health. So one of the main ways for helping people manage their mental health issues is a thing called CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. To put it simply, it involves developing new ways of thinking about a situation so that rather than seeing it in a negative way, you can see it in a more positive way. Now, CBT is a package of different skills and thought processes that you can use on a given situation. One that I found particularly useful was called the journalist or the spectator method. What this essentially involves is stepping away from your perspective to see it from somebody else's perspective, somebody who isn't necessarily directly involved in the situation. And this is a technique that can be particularly useful for people with social anxieties. It's not uncommon for people who suffer from severe social anxiety to have a conversation with somebody and then 5 minutes later be absolutely certain that they said something that would have caused offence or been entirely inappropriate to say. This particularly affected me with my OCD because going back to how my OCD involved checking, it would make me want to go back and talk to that person to check that I didn't say something offensive. So what this thought process essentially has you do is to rethink over the situation from the view of an outsider, from a journalist or a spectator who is watching. And you simply take a very analytical approach to seeing what happened. If the person didn't say they were offended, if the person didn't show any outward reactions to you saying something inappropriate, there's a good chance that you didn't say anything offensive or inappropriate. So that is a very oversimplified explanation of the technique, but essentially it is a very simple thing. The difficulty comes in practicing that and repeating it again and again and again until it becomes second nature, until you start doing that essentially without having to actively think about it. And I found that is very similar to archery. Your release is a simple thing. You put your hand in the same place as you put it all those times before and you let go of the string. It can be broken down to being that simple, but to get good at it, you have to do it again and again and again. It takes that practice, it takes that time until it becomes second nature, until you no longer have to think, is my hand in the right position? You no longer have to think about gently relaxing your fingers. It just becomes second nature. So a scenario that I'm sure many people watching this video have experienced: you're shooting some archery, you're hitting those 9s, you're hitting those 10s, it's all going great. You mess up your shot, you throw it out into the blue, you hit a 5, and you're immediately frustrated with yourself for messing up your score, and you start thinking, what went wrong? Was it my anchor? Was it my release? Must have collapsed, not enough back tension. And next time you stood there about to take your next shot, and that's all you're thinking about. Is my anchor point right? Have I got the right back tension? And you're so focused on thinking about that, you mess up your next shot as well. And that can quickly snowball. And I've seen it a lot of times, particularly in competitions, where somebody will get one bad shot and the rest of their round just starts going downhill because it snowballs. They mess up that one shot, they're distracted thinking about that, so they mess up the next shot, and that makes it worse, so then they mess up the next shot and they get stuck in this trap of getting more and more frustrated. But we can apply the CBT method to this exact scenario. If you take a step back from that bad shot, remove yourself emotionally from it, and just look at how it's been going. You've hit 30 golds, you've hit 1 in the blue. You're not doing anything wrong, you just had one bad shot. Ignore it, carry on shooting how you have been before. And that again sounds like a very oversimplified way to deal with the situation. Well, thanks, I'm cured. But the theory behind the process is that simple. The difficult bit is actually doing it. And that takes time, that takes practice, that involves consciously making an effort to do it to begin with until you've done it so many times that it becomes natural, just like your shot process. And as you practice it more and more and more, it becomes more natural, it becomes subconscious, and it just becomes simple, like your shot process. But one thing I found that surprised me that I did not expect at all was that by practicing this technique when it came to my archery, it helped me apply that technique when it came to my OCD. So that practicing until it became subconscious, I was able to do that on a situation that didn't cause me stress and anxiety, but apply it to one that did. And it helped me deal with those situations. And I think that's one of the ways where archery had such a massive impact on the speed at which I was able to recover and learn to live with my mental health issues. And that is just one of the many ways that archery can be applied to CBT and CBT can be applied to archery. Since having done CBT, I felt like it's an essential life skill. And I feel like it's something that if I'd known about it before my mental health issues became as bad as they did, it may have prevented them from developing that far. It may have stopped them snowballing. If you have this arsenal of tools that you can use to stop the problem before it gets out of control, you're in a much stronger position to start with. So I recommend that anybody checks out CBT. There are tons of resources out there, and I think it can have a big impact on your sports and your general well-being. So in the next video, I want to look at target panic, which is one element where I think there are processes within CBT that could help when it comes to that. So that's something that I'll be looking at for the next video. I hope this video has been entertaining, or at the very least informative. If you do have any questions, please feel free to throw them down in the comments below. And as always, look after yourselves.